Well, today's episode, we're going to be reviewing the latest New Japan shows, which is Capital Collision, where we have, of course, the Strong Openweight Championship on the line. We even got the Strong Openweight Tag Team titles on the line in a three-way and various other matches taking place. And, of course, we got the latest ChocoPro show, 304, with 3 matches taking place. Of course, they're also building up for their upcoming crossover event. And then finally, we got the latest Impact Wrestling pay-per-view, Rebellion, where 2 vacant titles will be decided. Will Jordynne Grace or Deonna Purrazzo become the brand new Knockouts World Champion? Or will either Steve Maclin or Kushida will become the new Impact World Champion? Well, we will never know. We got other matches taking place on this, and we also got some interesting news updates to talk about, such as, of course, now that some things have been taking place with Noah, and one especially involving the Yoshi wrestlers, something that Mayuhiki have thought and talk about. We even got, of course, the match card for the upcoming Hana Kimora Memorial Show coming up next month, and a whole lot of things. So, let's get ready for another episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Welcome everybody to Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, Gerard here. So, let's begin with New Japan Pro Wrestling with Capital Collision in DC. This is one of their much recent events here in the States. So let's get started now. For the pre-show, we have a tag team match. We have West Coast Wrecking Crew consistent of Jorel Nelson and Royce Isaacs taking on the members of TMDK, Bad Dude Tito, and Shane Haste. Now, it was a pretty interesting pre-show. As you know, these are 2 of the tag teams definitely we got to pay attention, even if they're not in the main card. But nonetheless, it was a good one, but it was TMDK with the PKO that allowed them to pick up the win. So I'm very happy with that. The next match is a very interesting one. As you know, we have a 10-man tag team match. Team number 1, we got Kevin Knight, Gabriel Kidd, Mike Bailey, Volador Jr., and of course, Kushida. They take on DKC, Clark Connors, Leo Rush, Rocky Romero, and Chuck Taylor. Now, much of the story, you can tell that there's a bit of the rivalry between both Volador Jr. and Rocky Romero. Now, there is an implication in this type of match that the ring announced, that the commentators mentioned, if Volador's team win this match, he probably will get another opportunity of the shot of the NWA Historic Welterweight Championship that Rocky has won from Volador Jr. But however, if you guys remember clearly, Volador Jr. did get a little measure of revenge by having Rocky Romero's head shaved. But now it's about directly for the title. So I thought the match, it was pretty good. But however, in this particular match, it went into when Rocky ended up in a backbreaker by Volador Jr. that allowed them to pick up the win. So Volador will get another shot. So Knight, Kushida, Bailey, who else? Kidd, and Volador Jr. got the victory. But however, post-match, DKC, on the other hand, he got himself beat up out of the blue from Clark Connors. So basically, Clark Connors decided to take his frustrations out on DKC, and that's pretty much it. We don't know what was the significance of the whole thing. But however, this next match we got to talk about. we have AR Fox versus David Finlay. Now, a lot of talk has been talking about. I haven't got yet to the discussion video about the Bullet Club and what is the difference between now with the leadership implicating. But however, David Finlay, as you know, has been trying to rebuild Bullet Club into his own version. Now, we have seen how many of the wrestlers within Bullet Club, when it comes to, okay, I don't like this guy because it's not the same thing, that sort of thing. But we'll get to that discussion at some other point. But one thing I did like about this is that, you know, David Finlay is showing who he is, that this is now his Bullet Club, his world, and we're just living it. But it took you probably would have assumed that AR Fox would try to be using his craftiness in order to get out of every situation with David Finlay. But however, in the end, it was the trash panda by Finlay that allowed him to pick up the one match. But however, that's when things got a little interesting. If you could recall recently, David Finlay and the rest of the Bullet Club kicked out El Phantasmo, and he said that he was going to look for his replacement. And that replacement is someone who I did not expect, and that was none other than Clark Connors. Now, the reasons he chose Clark Connors was many reasons. He felt the Shibata was not giving him the credit that it due. He felt that he was being disrespected for the talent that was being wasted. So basically, Clark Connors feel maybe David Finlay's right. So joining Bullet Club could change that. But of course, David Finlay says that the reason that he's doing this now, he feels that Bullet Club has lost its ways. And that is something we will talk about in the discussion video that will be coming up soon. As soon as I finish writing down everything that I can put into the input of the video. But it does make a lot of sense. I mean, if Bullet Club has lost its ways, because right now, the only person within the Bullet Club who has a championship is none other than Kenta. So we'll talk about that at some point. So our next match is the IWGP World TV title. Tom Lawler taking on Zack Sabre Jr. I have to say, what an incredible match. I mean, this is one of those matches you definitely want to talk about, because you can tell by many moments. We have seen these two men, excellent technical wrestlers, not to mention good at submission. But one thing I did like is how Tom Lawler countered every submission tactic that Zack Sabre Jr. was doing. I have to say, Tom Lawler really, really put him to his limits. But when you thought Tom Lawler would have had the opportunity to become the IWGP World Television title, no. Zack Sabre Jr., there was no way he could have made him tap out. So the only thing he had left was to get the pinfall, which he did. And I was like, whoa. He actually did like a somewhat of a seatbelt type pinfall on him, and I thought that was great. So I think he knew that there was no way Tom Lawler would have be submitted by him. But I wouldn't be surprised if Tom Lawler calls out Zack Sabre Jr. to make this official. But you got to remember, the IWGP World Television title, you have to defend it within a 15-minute time limit, which is no pressure for Zack. But Tom Lawler seems like he was able to handle exactly the pressure. So basically, it's something we definitely got to be talking about in the near future. But nonetheless, it was good. Our next match, we have Desperado taking on Tomohiro Ishii. This is a good match. Now, some of you may question, okay, why would Desperado, who's a junior heavyweight competitor, taking on a heavyweight competitor like Tomohiro Ishii? Look, we have seen time and time again wrestlers who started out in the junior heavyweight division make the jump to heavyweight. We've seen that with Kenny. We've seen that with El Phantasmo. We've seen that with Shingo. Many wrestlers, it doesn't matter what promotion you're in. If you make the jump for junior heavyweight to heavyweight, you just set a lot. I mean, look, what's his name? Taiji Shimura. He is a junior heavyweight. He even took out heavyweight competitors. And that's what makes it great. Now, I have to say, Despy did an amazing job. But the mistake he made is when he tried to apply a second pinche loco onto Tomohiro Ishii, but that was not enough until Tomohiro Ishii turned it around and put it into a brainbuster. It was it. But I have to say, I wouldn't be surprised that if Desperado makes the decision to make the jump to heavyweight. That is something we could talk about if that's the decision that he wants to make. We said, like I said, many wrestlers have done that. I mean, Will Ospreay himself was a junior heavyweight competitor until he made the jump to heavyweight. Like I said, we had Will Ospreay, Kenny, Shingo, who else? El Fantasmo. We have seen that with Kenta, Naomichi Marufuji. Many wrestlers made that jump from junior heavyweight to heavyweight. So that's what I can put out. Now, our next match, we were supposed to have Fred Rosser versus Juice Robinson. Now, this was a revenge match that Fred Rosser wanted. If you remember, in the Battle of the Valley, Fred Rosser was the strong openweight champion until Juice Robinson cost him the title, losing it to Kenta. And of course, Fred Rosser decided to take it a little too farther by calling out Juice Robinson's wife, but instead of becoming a match, it became a brutal beatdown. I mean, he already beat him up completely, but he decided to continue it. But later, after the events, New Japan suspended Juice Robinson until further notice. So basically, it didn't end exactly like we thought. So it just went to that. So apparently, not only that, Juice even knocked out a referee. So it led into a no contest. Our next match, we have a bit of like, as you guys know, we have LIJ consistent of Hiromu Takahashi and Tetsuya Naito taking on members of just 5 guys. We have Kanemaru and, of course, our new IWGP Heavyweight Champion, Sanada. Now, we know recently Hiromu made the decision to challenge for the IWGP World Championship. However, he is a junior competitor, but Sanada did state it. If you're going to come after this title, you need to put that title on the line. So he voted Kanemaru to be the guy to challenge him. So that kind of puts it in. But the obvious question does tell. Is Naito feeling a little disturbed now that Sanada is no longer with his team and he's the current IWGP World? Well, it seems okay, but the match itself was pretty good. Very explanatory, but I am seeing how this match can become interesting. Now, I cannot recall if Kanemaru has ever won the IWGP junior heavyweight title, but we know he has been tag team champion with Despy in the past. But this move could show that maybe Kanemaru could have his time now as becoming the IWGP junior heavyweight champion that we've been expecting, because he was the one who unexpectedly picked up the pinfall on Hiromu. But is this the sign that yet to come? Will Kanemaru finally become the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion? Well, we'll find out when that day comes. Now, our next match, we have, of course, some old friends from their pro wrestling Noah days. We're talking about Eddie Edwards and Kenta. Now, these two guys, before Kenta came to New Japan, he was in Pro Wrestling Noah. He was one of their biggest stars down there. Before he made the jump to AEW and then back to Japan, we all thought back then he was going to join Pro Wrestling Noah, but no, he decided to join New Japan. But one thing that was later, Kenta at the Multiverse United, he bumps into Eddie Edwards. So Kenta said to Eddie, "You will always be a young boy to me." So he decided, let's have one last match together, but this time is for the the Strong Openweight Championship, which, of course, now you probably can guess that this is going to be a hard-hitting match. And, of course, Kenta being Kenta, tried to use his ways to cheat his way until, at a moment, we saw the ref was taken down, and then, of course, he put him out in the GTS. That kind of sets it all. But apparently, we received a video message from Hikuleo saying that he wants him to put that title on the line at Wrestling Dodaku. So the obvious thing is, will Kenta actually accept it? Well, he actually did accept the match. So it's like, let's go. Now, our main event we have is a 3-way for the strong open weight tag team titles. Now, as you know, the champions at the time, Motor City Machine Guns, were willing to defend those titles against Tanahashi and Okada, because they are considered as the dream tag team. But however, the first ever champions, Aussie Open wanted a chance. But Motor City Machine Guns had no problems, putting those titles on the line and all this. But the match was great. I have to say it was a great match, seeing a three-way. But I kind of figured that this match was going to end with Aussie Open, because I often talked about how people are now saying they are the best tag team. But I often talked about how Aussie Open are trying to outdo the one tag team that has been considered the best tag team today. And that is, of course, we all know who they are, FTR. But of course, it was the Coriolis that put away Sabian, and Fletcher picked up the win by pinning Sabian, and they become two-time strong openweight tag team champions. But during the post-match, they're saying who is the best tag team, and of course people are saying FTR, and they're like, that's a load of bullshit. I mean, look, we all could agree FTR is one of the best. They're like, Aussie Open are not clearly in the same level as them. I mean, think about it. They have held 3 titles in 1 year last year. It was the IWGP Tag Team titles, the Ring of Honor Tag Team titles, and the AAA. I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere down the line, Aussie Open would challenge FTR for the AEW World Tag Team titles to try to outdo them. That is something I know that could happen. But we'll just wait and see until that day comes. So for now, we'll end it right here with New Japan. Let's move on to our next review, and I believe that is ChocoPro number 304. Okay, ChocoPro 304. Now, our opening match, we have Tokiko Kirihara teaming up with Shin Suzuki. They take on Sayaka and Masahiro Takanashi. Now, keep in mind, Taka has always been teaming up to us. Masa has teamed up with various people. Sayaka is one of them. I think she might have been in one of his matches where he actually won. But this was a very interesting matchup, from what I can tell. But the one thing that stood out, Masa misfired by accident on Sayaka by trying to aim for Tokiko's head, but accidentally got Sayaka. But he realized his mistake. Suzuki was able to try to keep Masa away from trying to save Sayaka, leaving Tokiko to do a roll-up onto Sayaka. 1, 2, 3, it was done. And I think Masa felt guilty that he misfired. This normally doesn't happen with him and Chris, but it did. Next up is a 3-way match, or in Latin terms, it was a 2-on-1. We have Sayaka Obihiro versus Kojio versus Balinaki. Now, the only reason I say that this is a 2-on-1 type of scenario was because A, Obihiro and Kojio are members of the Uma army, the monsters, if you guys know what I'm talking about. So Balinaki knows that he is outnumbered, because he suspects that those two will work together, but he has to play a much of a smarter tactical game, knowing that he has to separate one or the other in order to pick up the win. But he was able to withstand both Kojio and Obihiro as possible when he had Kojio slammed onto Obihiro, giving him time to jump out to the window and do a diving body splash on Sayaka Obihiro, and 1, 2, 3, he won the match. So just like that. Our next and final match, we have a very interesting one. As you know, we have Chiko Shikawa teaming up with Mochi Natsumi of Prominence. They take on, of course, teacher and student, Miya Yotsuba and Mei Shruga. Now, we know recently we have seen Miya has been in a bit of a rivalry with Mochi Natsumi, losing to her. But we also know the rivalry of both Chiko Shikawa and Mei Shruga. These two have always been top rivals, knowing that who's going to be the top of the Gatoh Move ChocoPro promotion. That's always been the talk about them. But it was a pretty good match. I mean, I know Miya has learned a lot from Mei Suruga since she started out. But the obvious question is, can Mia, how do I say, try to pick up a win against Mochi Natsumi? Well, the obvious question, it did not, because it was Chiko Shikawa who picked up the win onto Mia, giving her the match. So that was tough love there. Now, for our Jonkin tournament, this was a very interesting one. I would have assumed that Chi or May or Balian or someone was going to make it to the finals, but it was, of course, Mia who actually won the Jonkin tournament all the way to Shin Suzuki, and she may not have won the main event, but at least she won the Jonkin tournament. So that's pretty cool to see. So, well, what you get this win, you may have lost this match, but you win this one. So I think that's pretty much it with this. So let's move on to our final review, Impact Wrestling with Rebellion. Okay, our final review, Impact Wrestling Rebellion. This is their latest pay-per-view. Now let's talk about the kickoff shows, the kickoff matches they have. We have Heath and Rhino taking on Champagne Singh. I don't know when he started calling him that. We're talking Raj Singh teaming up with Shera. Now this match, you know, the Singh and Shera will do everything in their power to see if they can get to the top, which unfortunately they cut their way through on this particular match. Singh used the ropes to leverage onto Heath in order to pick up the win, but Shera made sure that that's how it happened, by grabbing his feet to ensure it doesn't move anywhere. So Singh and Shera may have won the match, but in the post-match, Rhino gets the last laugh when he gore Singh. So I'm sure Singh will get his revenge on Rhino, but that's not on this day. Now, our next and final match of the kickoff, we have the Knockouts tag team titles. The Death Doll gets another opportunity for these titles. They take on the Coven, Taylor Wilde and Kylie King. So this is a very interesting matchup. Now, you probably would have assumed this would still fall in favor of the Coven, which of course they did. It was Taylor Wilde that picked up the win onto Rosemary, while Kylie King was dealing with Jessica to keep her away to ensure that the match ended in their favor. Now, our opening match is the one we definitely going to be talking about. We have the Impact World Tag Team titles in an Ultimate X match. We're talking about the Motor City Machine Guns taking on Bullet Club's ABC, Chris Bay and Ace Austin. Now, keep in mind, Shelly and Sabin, this is their wheelhouse with the Ultimate X. Now, as if you guys remember completely, we talk about people that have their much comfort zone. Like, for example, my favorite comfort zone where people think they have the much better advantage is the match in Stardom back in Dream Queendom in December 29th of last year, where, of course, the artist belts were on the line. It was, at the time, it was Oedo Tai defending them against Prominence. Now, they requested for the hardcore match because they thought, oh, we use weapons, that's going to fall in our favor. It did not, because Prominence are well expert in hardcore matches. They've been through it, so that was their mistake. But we've seen other type of matches where it's their wheelhouse. Like, for example, the Clockhouse Orange Fudge match, or whatever they call it. That didn't go so well for Sammy because he knows that it's in the wheelhouse. So that sort of thing. Now, you probably would have assumed, okay, how will the ABC overcome this one? They don't have that much of experience in Ultimate X matches. Well, you'd be surprised that somehow the ABC were able to pick up the win to retain the titles. I was like, wow. It was, of course, Chris Bay that pulled it off. Even though this is not his strong suit in the Ultimate X, but it worked in his favor. Next match, we have Dirty Dango, Joe Hendry, and Santino Marella taking on members of the Design. This is a very interesting match. Basically, I thought it was great. But however, one thing that was great is, of course, is Sami Callihan, who turned on the design. I don't know if he did that on his free will, or was it another, like as we all expected, a ploy. We don't know. But it took a Cobra strike by Santino onto Diener that give them the win. But you know for a fact that Design are not going to take this kindly with Sami's insolence, so they will get their measure of revenge on that. Now, our next match is a last rites match. This war between Eddie Edwards and PCO has gone long enough. Now, this whole thing began when Eddie Edwards was calling PCO that he was useless, that he was all good for nothing. This is during the time of Honor No More days, but now PCO, who is felt disrespected by Eddie Edwards, wants revenge. So basically, that's what was going on. But Eddie Edwards trying so desperately to put it in the past, but it seems it's PCO who's trying to put it in the past. So the only way to win is by putting their opponents through a casket and closing it, and that is it. But Alicia Edwards got involved, but Eddie Edwards accidentally super kicked her, allowing for PCO to attack Eddie Edwards with the shovel and then chokeslam him through the coffin, closing it. It's over. The past is in the past. Whew. Next match is the X Division title in a elimination match 3-way. Now, this happened, if you guys remember, this was a 3-series match between both Gresham and Mike Bailey. But the match was ruined by Trey Miguel, and apparently Santino Marella laid down the law saying, well, I'm going to put both of these guys for your titles. I don't think Trey Miguel expected it. But in this match, I knew he was going to be in a desperation mode to ensure he does not lose the X Division title. That seems like what he was doing. He was able to eliminate Mike Bailey, and then finally he was able to defeat Jonathan Gresham. No, he got rid of Gresham, and then he got rid of Mike Bailey by using the ropes. So he did everything desperately possible to retain the titles. Our next match is a hardcore war match. Now we have Team Bully, consistent not only of Bully Ray, Masha Slamovich, Kenny King, Brian Myers, Moose. They take on Team Dreamer, consistent of Tommy Dreamer, Killer Kelly, Frankie Kazarian, Yuya Uemura, and Bhupender Gurjar. But the one thing that really is crazy is Killer Kelly used a staple gun on Kenny King's head and then used it onto on Brian Myers. But one thing that was she used it on Moose and shooting the staples right in Moose's gonads, and then she tried it on herself. But this match was seems like it was gonna go straight to Bully Ray, but it did not, because Bully has been nothing more than a problem to Impact, especially to the refs who had enough of him. They decided to beat the crap out of him, and then but however, first pin by Tommy Dreamer to Bully did not work, so Dreamer thought, okay, I'll put him in a table. I body splashed out, landed right on top. It's over. So the war is done. We move on to the next big thing. Now, before we start the match for the Impact World title, which is vacant, we had a surprise return. Nick Aldis, who at the time known as Magnum. Now, it's very interesting how this turned out. Many people thought Nick Aldis could have been heading to WWE. That is something that was discussed. We know he had recent, not seeing eye to eye with NWA, especially with William Patrick Corgan. But nonetheless, Impact Wrestling is one of the places where it made him a star, and I think that's a good thing. But the only reason he comes out, he joins the commentary team, because he wants to have first row seat on the match involving the Impact World title. So that's a good reason, because he probably will be challenging for that title somewhere down the line. Now, this match is, of course, if you guys remember, Josh Alexander had to relinquish the belt due to a torn bicep. Steve Macklin, who spent an entire year studying Josh Alexander, basically is not challenging him, so he faces Kushida. I thought this match was pretty good because Macklin had Kushida right where he wanted him, but when you thought Kushida had him right in the hoverboard lock, it did not go well exactly. He overturned it and turned it into the Kia. But however, Macklin, who had his fits with Scott D'Amore in the past, he felt that Scott D'Amore has treated Josh Alexander as a favorite. So he feels like, hey, you're going to do exactly what I say. You're going to put the belt on me. But Scott D'Amore is not going to do that. It wasn't the sign of favoritism with anybody. He always liked Josh Alexander because he believed in him. But he wasn't going to let that happen. So Macklin did not like that. So he sucker punched him. Nick Aldis shows up and confronts him. So basically, we could see Nick Aldis versus Steve Macklin down the line. So that is something we definitely going to see. Now, our main event, we have the Impact Knockouts title that was vacant by Mickie James on this past Thursday on Impact Wrestling. So now it became Deonna Purrazzo versus Jordynne Grace. Now, this is a case of deja vu, if you guys remember clearly. When Deonna Purrazzo came into Impact Wrestling, she defeated Jordynne Grace, who at the time was the Knockouts champion. So the obvious thing does tell, will Jordynne Grace overcome that loss that she had in the past? So that's a good one. I have to say there was a lot of good moments. I mean, Jordynne Grace did had Deonna Purrazzo in the Grace Driver, and it didn't work. But it was, of course, the Queen's Gambit that Deonna Purrazzo used to put away Deonna Purrazzo once again becoming Knockouts champion and the return of the Age of the Virtuosa. But putting aside this, if you guys know this or not, Deonna Purrazzo and Steve Macklin in real life are married. So we could see down the line the perfect heel couple, power couple. And we can see, of course, Nick Aldis, who we all know, Mickie James' wife. They could be the real life babyface couple. That is something we can definitely see in the future, but we gotta wait until Mickie James may recover from her injuries that she obtained. So we just will wait and see. But it was nonetheless a pretty good show. I did enjoy certain matches, but yeah. So I think that's pretty much it right now with Impact. Let's end it with our news updates. Okay, so welcome to our news update. So let's get started to what we have. Now let's talk about the stuff that's been going on in Pro Wrestling Noah. Now recently, we just had the Yoshi wrestlers making once again their appearances in Noah. They just had Mayu Hiki taking on Syuri Minatsu. It was a pretty good match. They did announce for another one that will take place on May 4th. It's going to be Saki from Colors teaming up with Mayuhiki taking on Ryo Nizunami and Syuri Minatsu. Now, this is a very good thing. However, Mayuhiki has this strange feeling about something that believes that maybe this is the first step to what has been talked about. If you guys remember clearly, back in January, during the Great Muta Final Bye-Bye, we did feature Sori Onoi and Jun Kiona teaming up, taking on Mayuhiki and Syuri Minatsu. But during the post-match comments, Jun Kiona said something that kind of sparked talk about this. She's saying if New Japan Pro Wrestling are going to have the IWGP Women's Champion, and of course at the time Kairi was the champion, someone who Jun Kiona respected, she said, why not have the GHC Women's Championship? And I saw the look in Syuri Minatsu, like she likes the sound of it. Simple. We're now seeing women appearing in promotions like New Japan, now Pro Wrestling Noah, and now we're seeing it with All Japan. I wouldn't be surprised if All Japan would step into the fray saying, okay, we're going to have a women's championship in our promotion. I feel like maybe Pro Wrestling Noah could be that promotion, could step up to the game. But the obvious question is, when will this happen? Will they have exactly what we should see? The GHC Women's Championship. This is what Mayuhiki said on her during an interview about this. I just recently saw it. This is what she said. There's hope for the GHC women's title, which we talked about last time. I hope Noah continues to let women's wrestlers tear it down. So basically, if that's the case, if Noah really is interested in having Joshi wrestlers making their way to Pro Wrestling Noah, I say I'm up for it. I'm sure we're seeing a new age coming up in this type of thing. So we'll just got to wait and see. Now, speaking of Noah, Hideki Suzuki has announced that he's officially out of Sugi Uragun, and he's going to form his own army. Now, those who probably saying, what do you mean by army? If you guys know the name Goon, it sounds like gun, but it's Goon, which Goon, or Goon, in their native language, means army. So basically, he's going to form his own army. I wouldn't be surprised if it's, I don't know, it feels kind of silly. Like Suzuki Goon and Noah. But I just hope it doesn't go that way, because people are going to say that's a ripoff to the Suzuki Goon we know in New Japan. So we'll see about that. Now, as you guys remember, Deadlock Pro Wrestling and Gatoh Move will have a crossover event later on this month. They announced that one of the matches involving on April 20, on April or so, Mei Shiruga will face Arisu Inda from Tokyo Pro Wrestling. That's going to be an interesting match. Now, earlier this year, we did saw the first beginning of the All-Star Junior Festival that took place in Corkin Hall. That was a huge success of event. However, Rocky Romero said, hey, bring this thing to America. And there was talk, I didn't know if that was a possibility until they announced it. So yes, the All-Star Junior Festival 2023 USA will take place on August 19th of 2023 at the 2300 Arena, Philadelphia, home of, I believe, ECW. I think this is great to hear all this, because we're probably going to see a lot of junior heavyweights from various promotions. That's something that I'm looking forward to it. Tokyo Yoshi Pro Wrestling has announced the return once again of the Tokyo Princess Cup. Now, those who aren't familiarized with that, that is an annual tournament. The winner will get a shot of the Princess of Princess Championship. Last year we had Yuka Sakazaki, but now we'll see who it is. I'm hoping Miyu Watanabe wins that one. Last year she was so close. I just hope she gets it this year. But it will take place later on. It starts at the Ryogoku KFC and it ends in Corkin Hall. Now, the specific dates have not been announced, but I'll follow up on that. Prestige Wrestling announced for the Roseland 5 event taking place later on this month on the 29th of April. Robert Martyr will be in action taking on Daniel Garcia. Recently, in the Sendai Girls show, if you guys remember, Chihiro Hashimoto will be in action this coming Sunday and Stardom taking on Syuri. Well, Syuri appeared at a Sendai Girls show in Shinkiba and watched the show from there with her stablemates of God's Eye. And of course, she got in the ring, shared a beer with Hashimoto, then poured beer, and then kissed her. So that kind of sets the whole thing. I wouldn't be surprised if Hashimoto tries to kill her in her own backyard. So that I could definitely see. Now, we did saw the tournament events of what happened in Stardom at the Cinderella tournament, where, of course, Mina and Waka Tsukiyama left. Tae Honma, if you guys know who she is, she's a current freelancer in the Yoshi world. used to be a member of the Actwres Girls things. She talked about this in Shoe Pro Wrestling. Let me pull that up real quick. Yes, she said this. I watched the April 2nd Stardom show at the venue. I was excited when Syuri suddenly appeared. Syuri Onoi, Natsupoi, Maki Osaki, now Kakuta, then Ina Aiba. I wish we all could stand in the ring together someday. I mean, if you guys notice now, Cosmic Angels are all members were former of Actwres Girls, and now it's taken over. But one thing that really sucks is that Waka left, and she was Actwres Girls too. Now, who else do we know in Stardom is Actwres Girls? I mean, Momokogo's one, Mai Sakurai. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have almost everybody who is no longer with Actwres Girls show up in Stardom. So that kind of would be cool to watch. Now, our final update here, if you guys remember, we're only almost a month away for the 3rd annual Hana Kimora Memorial Show, Pinks. The card has been announced in a press conference led by Kyoko Kimora, Hana Kimora's mother. This is the matches that they announced for that particular day on May 23rd, I believe. There's going to be the annual Battle Royal. It's going to feature Chihiro Hashimoto, Funimori Abe, Hanako Nakamori, Mensori Oyaji, Super Delphin, Tatsuhito Senga, Tsutomu Osugi, and various others. There's going to be a singles match between Syuri Onoi and Yuki Takase. Then there's a tag match with Mika Iwata and Miyu Momono from Marvelous taking on Aja Kong and a mystery partner, or shall we say X. So that's going to be interesting. Then there's a 6-woman tag team match. We have Veni, or as we know her, Asuka, teaming up with Natsupoi and Syuri. They take on Konami, Kaori Yonayama, and Rina. That's going to be good. Then there's a 4-way tag team match to determine biggest brother. Then the team number 1, we have Masao Anabatake and Shotaro Oshino. They take on Ryo Mizunami and Sonoko Kato versus Yuko Miyamoto and Ram Kaicho. And then there's Koji Kanemoto and, of course, X, another mystery partner. That's good. That's too many mystery partners. And then finally, we have a singles match with good old Hana Kimora versus X again. So we don't know who will be the opponent. Sucks that Jungle Kyona will not be involved in this. As you know, she'll be in a hiatus to recover from her elite injury. I know she would have loved to be in this, but I wouldn't be surprised if she just watches it up close. So that is something we can definitely see. But I'm looking forward to this. Hopefully this is going to be a good show. We'll see what other surprises will be taking place. I think that's pretty much it right now. So let's just call it a day. Well, I hope everybody enjoys this episode. Coming up, as you know, we got Monday. It's going to be AEW Dark Elevation. As I said before, I haven't yet seen the remaining shows of the GCW Collective, but I'll get to those. I have missed out on the recent GCW shows, and of course, the latest New Japan Collision in Philadelphia. That is something I will be doing that as of now, but we'll get to that as soon as possible. If there's anything else, I think that's pretty much it what we have. So I will see you guys in the next DWZ time. Same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So, goodbye. Mwah. And have a nice day. Bang.